Make movers. Hope you all are doing well. Today, I want to talk to you about something that I think will really be great for you to hear and be a blessing to you as well. And it's something that every leader and every person who's trying to make moves must know, learn, and remember. I want to talk to you about changes. Yes, changes. Changes is something that every leader and every person who's trying to make moves will experience. It's inevitable. And we shouldn't be afraid of it. We shouldn't run from it, but we ought to embrace it because changes can mean that you are growing, but also those that you are trusted to lead and inspire are also growing. It is never easy to watch someone that you have mentored and encouraged and challenged and stretched begin to change, and sometimes that change leads them away from you. That's never easy to accept nor embrace. But at the same point, if you are effectively mentoring and effectively stretching people, you ought to expect it, you ought to embrace it, and you also ought to encourage it. Never should you stand in the way of a person being able to spread their wings. Trust me when I tell you, it doesn't mean that if they fly away, they never remember nor appreciate what you've done for them. But it does mean that they have received the impartation that you have given them. Consider this, if you will. There are some people that have been entrusted to you to lead, and your leading of them is for a set time period. There is a start and an expiration. And although you want this person to hang around longer, truth of the matter is they may only be in your life to receive and to glean from you for a short period and then leave. It's not a discredit to you. It's actually a compliment to you. These are some people who come and they need a very specific thing from you in this point in their life, and you have been gifted and talented with what they need. And once you have instilled this in them, they then go off to their next assignment or to their next venture. Please don't take it personal when this person decides to move on. It's necessary. It happens. Doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt you, doesn't mean that it doesn't break your heart. But just like a parent who has a young child, at some point that child is going to grow up and become adult age, and that child is going to leave the nest. He or she is going to leave, go off to college. They're going to move out and get their own apartment, get their own job, have their own family. And at some point, you don't want your grown child with your grown child's family residing in your home. You want them to be able to go off and experience life based on how you reared and raised them. Same way in leadership. There are people who consider you to be their model example, people who consider you to be the blueprint. And once they have sat at the table of life and learned from you and really have grasped all that you can give them for this point in their lives, you have to allow them to grow. You have to allow them to spread their wings. You have to allow them to move on. Trust me, they'll still be in contact. They'll still be calling you and texting you and writing you and asking you for wisdom nuggets. That won't cease. But they may not need you every single day to hold on to hold their hand and to hold on to them. You have to be okay with that. That's part of changes. Just as I'm advising you, at some point in your life, you were in the seat of the student and now you're in the posture of the teacher. At some point in your life, someone had to allow you to spread your wings, had to encourage you to fly away, had to encourage you to test the water. And I'm saying to you what someone said to somebody else years ago, it's okay. Change is inevitable. Let me press a little bit further. Change is also inevitable because sometimes there are people who are gleaning from you, but they're also leeching from you. And the leeching is detrimental because they're sucking you dry while you're trying to genuinely impart in them. They're not receiving your impartation. They're sucking you dry with no desire nor intentions to actually exercise what they've gained. They have no desire for their life or for vision. And so change at times will free you of people who've latched onto you with no real agenda. It's okay. It's part of life. These are experiences. No leader has grown to the place of leadership without having to allow people to stretch. You could think about it from a football analogy. Nick Saban, head football coach of the University of Alabama's football team. If you look at college football right now, there are so many coaches at so many levels who are head coaches that came from up under his tutelage. It is reported that not one of Nick Saban's assistant coaches from the past, who are now head coaches today, have ever beaten him as a head coach themselves. But they all give credit to Nick Saban for the impartation. Just this season alone, he's losing Steve Sarkisian, his offensive coordinator, who has now become the head coach of the University of Texas. These individuals take these jobs to work for a guy who they say it's very, very demanding. But the reward is they all find themselves in a greater position for a head coaching position. And Nick Saban would be wrong if he allowed his ego and his arrogance to block their growth. He demands a lot out of them, but the reward for him and for them is not only championships, but also greater opportunities. A great leader understands that if I raise up my subordinates the right way, if I raise up my mentees the right way, they'll get opportunities. And once they get opportunities, like an extension of me has been branched off. That's the great thing about leadership, is that when a person that you have mentored gets a chance to go do something greater, you can always look at them through the lens of pride because a part of you resides in them. And anyone who has genuinely received from your impartation, from your wisdom, from your training, from your mentoring, from your coaching, guess what happens? They will always acknowledge you no matter what stage they're on, because they recognize and realize I would not be where I am if it were not for the following people. In the following people list, you're in there. But change is inevitable. You have to embrace change. You have to accept change. You have to allow change. Because if you do not, it will not only stunt your growth, but it will stunt the growth of people that you are leading. In order for you to make moves, you have to understand that you have to be willing to branch off from familiar and go to unfamiliar. You have to be willing to position yourself to be a model for other individuals. Doesn't mean that you're not afraid. Doesn't mean that you're not fearful. But what it does mean is this is a part of the process. Talk about making moves. I want you to hear me loud and clear. If you are afraid of change, it's almost impossible for you to ever make major moves by way of career, by way of life, by way of investments, whatever it may be. You have to understand that change is important, and it also brings the best out of you. There are people who do better when the heat gets turned up. There are people who do better with tight deadlines. There are people who do better when they've been given an assignment at 4 p.m. that's due at 5 p.m. They do better in that pressure. Then there are other people who do better when you give them a laptop, an assignment, and you give them alone time. There are people who are better when you give them a 2-week heads up on an assignment that's due 2 weeks later. All of that, there are people who flourish in all those environments. But listen to me. Even in those environments, each of those individuals have to be able to adapt to change, because guess what? You're not going to always be given a 2-week heads up. You're not going to always be given other scenarios. Just be able to adapt to whatever environment and involvement you find yourself in. And if you really want to make moves, you have to understand that change is inevitable, but I don't have to be afraid of it. I don't have to run from it. I can embrace it. And once you embrace it, you are then able to educate and teach others to embrace it as well. Back on the Nick Saban analogy, if you research the amount of people who have worked for Nick Saban over his coaching resume, you would be amazed at the people today who are successful in their craft, but they spent time with him at some point. Nick Saban is a great coach. He gets great accolades, but Nick Saban would be insulting to his assistants if he took all that credit and never once acknowledged the players that he had and the coaches that he had. Nick Saban's not by himself recruiting high school players. He has people assisting him in that regard. He's not the one calling the plays. People are assisting him in that behalf. Yes, he is the head coach. He's at the helm of the football organization, but under him are individuals who put as much work in as he does. Now, because of the way in which he leads, he knows how to pick players and pick coaches to be a part of what he has built at Alabama. Kudos to him. But Nick Saban's not alone. Even you where you are, whether it be a person or multiple people, you can build people. You can stretch people. You can grow people. And then you can dispatch people. Change is inevitable. You don't have to be afraid of it. And I'm saying this to you. If you really want to make moves, you have to embrace, accept, and acknowledge that change will take place. As a leader, as someone who is influencing others, as someone who owns a business and employs people, as someone who pastors a church and you lead a flock, as someone who is an investor, whatever you find yourself in as you're listening to this, in that place, let me say to you, no matter what your profession, no matter what your craft, no matter what your skilling, no matter what your talent, you cannot avoid change from happening. People will come and people will go. What you want to make sure is that while you're making moves, you're actually leaving something for the people who encounter you to be able to pick up and utilize in their next venture. All of us, including myself, there's been a person or people in your life who imparted in you, and you are where you are and doing what you're doing because of their investment. You are an extension of their wisdom, an extension of their coaching, an extension of their impartation, an extension of their sacrifice. They had to endure something in life and then tell you about it so that you could avoid that pitfall but grow from it. Every real leader wants to propel his or her mentees further than where you stopped. You want that. You want to see them succeed. You want to challenge them. And guess what? These individuals have found in you the missing piece to what they need to do, what they want to do next. But if you are afraid of change, if you are one who is easily offended when somebody you've mentored now set off to do something else, then you are stunting your growth as a leader and theirs as well. Think about it. The people who are in your circle now, the ones that you are coaching, you are mentoring, you have employed, the ones who call you for wisdom and counsel. Think about those individuals at this current moment and ask yourself a singular question. Here's the question. Are they better because of their encounter with me? Again, are they better because of the encounter with me? If you can't answer that with full conviction of a yes, then you are failing them. But if you can say, yes, they are better because of their encounter with me, then you ought to be encouraged by them wanting to change and do something else because you know that you have played a part in preparing them for whatever next looks like. But if you answer, no, they're not better, then you have an opportunity to set the record straight and begin to intentionally invest in them or free them from what you're unable to do. But I will say this to you, and I'm in this situation. Anyone that you have had an opportunity to coach and mentor and invest in, they will always, always appreciate you publicly and privately. They will tell people about how great you are. Doors will open up for you because people that you have invested in will always speak well of you. There are people that I meet who I've never personally met until that first encounter I had with them, but they have heard my name because of someone I was blessed to invest in and mentor went and told them. You've been there where somebody meets you and they've already heard about you. They don't personally know you. This is their first encounter with you, but they've heard your name. They know about your character. They know about your resume. They know about the rewards that you have received because someone that you have invested in has been speaking well of you. But that's not possible if you want to hoard versus release. So again, if you really want to make moves, you have to embrace, accept, and acknowledge that change is going to happen. But I will say this to you. You are where you are, and you are doing what you're doing or trying to do what you're trying to do because at some point, someone in your life acknowledged that change was inevitable. They embraced it. They acknowledged it, they accepted it, and they became better. And as a result, you are better because they became better. And I'm saying to you, if you really want the best for the people that you are leading, you are mentoring, you want the best for the business that you are are creating or that you are at the helm of, you have to understand that you're going to lose some employees, very good employees, people who you can't match in anybody else. You're going to lose those people. But think about it. Think about it in this manner. If you publicly and privately applaud them, cheer them on, and release them, they will always appreciate you. It will always appreciate you. I've seen this in settings where an owner of a business, a pastor of a church, elected official, they spoke ill of a person who resigned, and they resigned the right way. They spoke ill of that person. They bashed their name, assassinated their character, versus publicly applauding them, thanking them, appreciating them. And what happens is it speaks negative of the leader, that you are so arrogant, egotistical, and immature and insecure that you would spend your energy and your time bashing someone versus actually encouraging someone. Change. It's going to happen. Whether you embrace it or not, it's going to happen. Think about the weather. There are 4 seasons, and no matter what you think about fall, it's going to come. No matter what you think about winter, it's going to come, and so is spring, and so is summer. It's going to happen. It doesn't call you in advance for permission. It's going to happen. And you have to understand it's going to happen. And so you can either embrace it, acknowledge it, and accept it, and now know how to flow with it, or you can gripe about it. But guess what? Even in your griping, it's going to happen. Same thing with change. Change is going to happen. It's not going to stop because you don't want it to happen. It's going to happen. And while others around you are making moves and you are stagnant, you can't get mad at the movers when you are stuck. So my challenge for you on this day, every day you're listening to this, here's my challenge. Embrace change. Acknowledge change. Accept change. Don't be afraid of change. But most importantly, learn how to still make moves when change is taking place. Hope this helps you out. Hope this encourages you. This is for the employee and the employer, for the pastor and the parishioner. This is for that person who finds yourself stuck between a major decision, the person who's stuck on a job you don't like, but you have to work. Whatever situation you find yourself in, listen to me. Don't be afraid of change, because the greatest opportunity for you may be on the other side of you embracing, you acknowledging, and you accepting that change is real. Somebody needs you to grow, to mature, and to make moves, because their next launch is going to be on the back end of your launch. Hope you're encouraged. Hope this helps you out. I encourage you to share this with other people. If you're watching this, I encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Darrick D. McGhee Sr., where I upload a new video every Saturday. I also want you to visit the website at www.darrickdmcgee.com. There you can learn more about me as a man, learn more about ministry, about the administration and services that are provided through Strategic Inflection Point LLC, my professional development services company, as well as about me from a public policy professional standpoint, which simply means me being a lobbyist, me as a pastor. All that can be found at the website. I'm grateful for your time. Hope all goes well. And remember, make moves, not announcements.